So I'm not going to lie, I'm going to put my hands up and say that the stocked Haunched Half-Lap had me a bit confused because there's quite a bit of layout involved which has to be very accurate, like down to half the thickness of my pencil line. So the process sort of is a bit different for each of the components. For the long shelves, I need to cut a 12mm wide groove, 3mm deep the whole way across and all the way through halfway across, and I need to flip the board over and line it up perfectly so I can do the same on the other side, or else this isn't going to work. And I got away with it, so both sides ended up lining up on this long shelf, and now I need to do the receiving joint on the vertical piece that stands up through the middle of these. These need a wider groove cut halfway through the joint, and then it needs a even wider joint than that cut over the top of this one that I'm doing right now. So this is why I started getting a bit confused with it, because I wasn't too sure how I was going to lay everything out and get this jig to line up perfectly, but I probably overthought it in my head and just decided to go for it, and I managed to pull it off. And in a minute you'll get to see that they start coming together really tightly, probably a bit too tight to begin with, which is great because it gives me a chance to sand it ever so slightly bit by bit until I get the perfect fit, because on install day this has to go together tightly with no gaps, but it has to go together without too much force. So I'm pretty happy with how that's going together on a first try. Nothing too out of place. So I'll see if I can press that in. If not, I'll sand this piece, which will make it a slightly looser fit. And now I just need to square off my half-lap sections and these ends where they die off. So I'll do that quickly and then give it a test fit. Worked. Yeah. So here's the two halves of the joint. I'll give you a bit of a close-up on what each one looks like. So this is the haunch that we're talking about here. The reason I do that is so when this piece is standing vertically, those little edges, the shelf actually sits on those, so it gives it support the entire way through, whereas with just a half-lap joint where you just cut this middle slot out halfway on this one and the other half on that one, you don't actually get any support at the back, so the boards can wiggle around and twist and whatnot. So this is a much stronger joint, and as you saw, it held together pretty well just from how tight it was. So I'll loosen it up a little bit more, but I've got to get the second one done. So I've got all my layout there ready to go. I've done the long piece already, so I just got to do this one and then I can test fit all three pieces together. After a bit of fine tuning with the sander, I've got this to the point where I'd consider it a tight press fit, and there's no gaps, which is great. So it's ready for pre-finishing and cutting to final length. And then in the next episode, I'll be getting on to gluing up the two end left and right shelving assemblies.